What's up, everybody, and welcome to another podcast of the warm-up. So we obviously are joined by Savannah, CJ, and Ben. So what is everybody drinking today?
I'm drinking this concoction. This is, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say it because I'm not sponsored by them, but I'm drinking a Prime energy drink because I wanted to try it out, and it's actually kind of delicious.
That is, if nobody's actually ever seen it, it is the energy drink that went absolutely crazy and viral on TikTok across the world, essentially.
Oh, no, now I don't want to drink it. I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, wow, you're so hip.
You didn't see people like storming like grocery stores because
I did
It
not
was
believe
Ben in the
TikTok.
video. Ben was in the video storming the
I
grocery store.
I don't TikTok.
He was the oldest person by 16 years in the video.
I don't even know who makes like, is it some influencer or something? I don't even understand. It's just
Logan and Jake Paul's company.
Okay, I don't know who they are, but it's a delicious.
Yes, you do. You listen.
No, I do not. Who is Logan Paul?
They're the like the YouTubers that like started to box and they make millions of dollars boxing.
Oh, is he the one that like had a fight the other night?
Yeah.
Like some blonde dude with tattoos?
Yeah, it's Logan. That might be Jake.
All right, I'm never drinking this shit again.
I'm also on the energy drink hype. I've got my Monster. And Savannah, what you got?
I'm drinking an oat milk latte in a cup that I painted.
Oh, that's so cool.
Fancy. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I want what Savannah's having. So we're all hyped up for this is the discussion around the CrossFit Games. We're all around the CrossFit Games. We were all there. We all had seats, and we have watched everything in live person. So we want to give you all the goss, all the info, and our thoughts and opinions about the workouts, programming, and the athletes. So kind of kickstarting it. For me, I thought the workouts were really, really exciting. From a spectator's point of view, really, really entertaining. CJ, what were your thoughts of the overall programming from Boz this year?
Yeah, I think so. There's two sides to this. Like, was it a good test, and was it an entertaining test? And those are not synonymous. They're just not, right? I think they did a really good job of making most of the tests that made it on TV super exciting, right? Like Helena, the lift, the medley, like that's what made it on ESPN, and that was really, really cool. And those are good tests, right? Now, from our perspective there was a 5K run, boring, a 40-minute bike, boring. And so, but those are very good tests. I think the test was very fair. I think the fittest won. And I think that it showed a really well balanced. There was power expression, there was strength expression, there was aerobic conditioning, there was gymnastics volume. And so I think it's good. I do think some of the tests, maybe just one in particular, was just kind of a throwaway, like the box jump, row. It just didn't seem very CrossFit Gamesy.
Right? Intervals?
Yeah, the intervals. It was exciting. It was also really confusing if you like the standard of getting over the box. That's why some people did exceptionally well and others didn't. Like Vellner had a baseball slide that was going through, but like some people couldn't do that in anyways. It just didn't seem like a very much of a CrossFit Games test. But I thought everything else really besides that test was solid.
But on that test,
long about this. We'll just keep with that. I think it was a good battery of tests to find the fittest on her. Yes.
I wish there was more barbells. I just want to say it. I was very saddened by the lack of barbells. That's the only input that I have. We had the liftoff thing, which was cool, but also left a ton to be desired. I hate the fact that we didn't get to see people truly show us what they could do, right? Like it wasn't a true 1RM. It was like you had basically 3 attempts And you just saw athletes take it. Oh, 2 attempts. You're right. It was 2 attempts. And you just saw athletes take it super conservative. And, some people took chances, but like, man, this is like the big stage. I want to see how many of those guys can snatch over 300 pounds now
Sure.
with everyone cheering them on. I want to see how much those girls can clean and jerk. But like, it was just kind of like, okay, we got some decent numbers, but like, dang, I bet people could have really shown up. And I like the cleans that they did a couple years ago, where it was like they had one bar and it was just like, they just kept adding weight, and it was like, who got it? And if you cleared it, you kept going. Man, I just wish they had something like that, even if it was like a 2 or a 3 bar setup, so they didn't have to, go as slow. There was so much left to be desired there. And then only one other workout with a barbell, right? The one with thrusters.
The thrusters.
That's crazy, man. Only 2 barbells.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And
I think for efficiency's sake, it was efficient. And I think that it did have a different spin on like a weightlifting total, right? They had to strategize a lot differently. They had to do a safe lift, but I think the problem with the format is that you had to do a safe lift, and then you had to take a risk. And I think that the risk for most people seemed to fall short. And so there wasn't like, it was like really just like such a fine line. And I can see how that kind of like, I get it, but I also felt like something was lacking because of it, because you're like, I just want them to like have the opportunity to do well and not be on this precarious balance of getting a total and then trying to make a massive jump to get the biggest total when it was such a tight scenario with those 2 short windows.
It was much more strategy than it was ability. Obviously, the stronger lifters showed out, right? We saw some of the guys, especially like, wow, and some of the ladies, right? Like one of the ladies, I think, opened with a 201-pound snatch. It was like, oh, snap, that's amazing. But I just like some of the smarter athletes really, like even Chandler, I think he hit a snatch or hit a clean and jerk, and he just kind of dropped it. He's just like, I should have gone heavier, like, darn it. And it's like, this is the chance for them to show on this huge stage. I wish we got to see everyone's true like 1RM. I think that would have been sick. But other than that, it's my only opinion.
Or like a ladder or something, because I think those are always so exciting. And I just think that they're like fun to watch and like really exciting. And I somehow never get bored of those like bracket style like elimination ladders, because it's like heavy and racy.
But we've not seen the ladders we never seen the ladder in Madison at all, did we? We only saw it in California. It's never
the clean that they did the other day, a couple years back, where it was 1 barbell and they just kept loading, and they just kind of hit it Congo style, where like someone would come up, lift, and if they made it, they went back and sat down. They could have done a ladder, or they could have made it where they could still be efficient and save time, because I think that was the issue with some of the other 1RM events, is like it just takes so long to get to people's 1RMs, and then like if you're just waiting, if you're trying to watch one lifter at a time with 1 barbell, the setup transition just takes too long. But they could have done it where there was multiple barbells. I don't know. I was very frustrated, extremely. I want my money back.
But I want to kind of circle back to what you said, CJ, about the interval workout, only because CrossFit have been trying to include more of this interval style type workout, because it was at 2020 where we had the swim and the sort of hit kind of movements with that pause. It's almost like, for me, they're trying to see who can be able to do that intensive work and be able to repeat that over time, where we haven't seen that in previous years.
Yeah, so we've seen intervals. We see some intervals last year with the lift heavy run pass, the jerks run. The interval isn't the problem. It was just the movement selection. It just was kind of meh. Like, it's very much a training design, not really competitive design, right? So like if you, in my opinion, if you really wanted to see like your reference to the swim, that was a complete lactate explosion of a bike sprint into people who don't swim that well into slam balls, which is just a work movement to basically express effort, fatigue musculature, and deplete oxygen out of your system. And so it was like kind of long, right? Like, you know, like if it was like bike, devil press, burpee box jump over, like of this like complete flattening of the system, it just would have looked cooler, right? It just, I don't know. To me, it was just kind of boring. It was just kind of like a boring design. The boring like movement selection was it. That's my only complaint. It was just kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think like it was fine.
And you mentioned you still think that the fittest won this year.
100%. Not even a question. Jeff Adler was fitter than everybody. He outran everyone besides Yellow Hosta, and he only didn't outlift 2 people. On that alone means he's probably the fittest, and he's always been close. He just didn't run well. And if you talk to his coach, that guy ran like 300 miles this year. So he's the fittest for sure. He would. I think he would have beat. You know, we'll get to Roman. I think it would have been close, but I think he still might have edged him out. Honestly.
And what's cool about Jeff too is like, you know, I'm complaining about the lack of barbells. But if they did throw in like a heavy DT or they threw like, he is the barbell guy. So like the fact that he won without many barbells, I think is super cool. And it just shows like, yeah, I agree. Like, I think he was the fittest. You know, Roman obviously was showing out and everybody wanted to see that throwdown at the end. So sad to see Roman not be able to show us how fit he was and kind of prove us wrong. But the fact that Jeff won the CrossFit Games and there was only 2 barbells is pretty wild, because he in a, you know, like in the open, even just a couple years ago, you know, like the heavy clean workouts and like all the heavy barbell stuff, he just destroys it. So I think it would have been cool to watch him do that. But, you know, again, I'm biased and annoyed by the lack of barbell stuff. But yeah, I think the fittest won, but it is going to have this bit of like asterisk, or this bit of like, well, because the person technically that was leading the event got injured. Sure. Right. So that's a big question mark.
Yeah, definitely.
And with Roman getting injured, how close do you think it would have been? Because
right, just the 2 workouts after it. Right, you had the jump rope, whatever. He didn't, and so like looking at that workout, if you watched him do his traverse, it like wasn't the smoothest. So I think they would have been really close. Like you just watched him traverse, and obviously, you know, effort and how hard he was trying, but he didn't look wildly smooth there. Now he would have crushed the sled without question because he's taller and he's strong, right? Because it wasn't a hand over hand sled pull; it was a push, right? Like it was a length winner, right? That's why Fikowski won by. So if you looked at like how much further he pulled the sled each time, because he can just extend his body further. But his traverse looked amazing. But if the couple that Roman did do, it was like he wasn't that smooth. So I think they would have been neck and neck there. But I think Roman would have taken him on the bike thruster. I don't think.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, because he had the lead, even though like Jeff might have been fitter.
Yeah.
But because Roman had the lead with those last 2 workouts, like I agree, like based on what I've seen from him, I think he would have probably won or gotten close to winning that bike workout, because he just can move that thing because he's so much bigger. So like if he wins that event and then Jeff gets whatever he got, like 4th, or, you know, now Jeff's effort would have been a lot higher. So there's just so many questions. So there is this question mark of like, darn, we miss an opportunity to see these guys go head to head with a 2-point margin or 1-point margin, whatever it was. So would have been close. Would have been real close.
Just touching on, obviously on Roman here for a little second. From what was everybody's experience and thoughts when we were watching Roman do the single leg heavy rope double unders in the pull? What was the atmosphere of the crowd?
Well, it was kind of like people cheered, you know, it was like, yay, look, he's going to be able to do it. And then, you know, obviously he tripped up a lot and he was tough. And then like, there was like a mixed bag of like people really supporting him, but also like, for me at least, like huge deflation. Cause I was just like,
I think everybody's heart sunk.
Yeah, everybody's heart sunk. And it was
Right,
just like,
you always want to be able to see a competitor compete.
yeah. So it was like, it was just really sad. And then even in like the last event when he just sat on the bike the whole time, it was just like, and then they like, you know, like they stopped the workout and he's technically not done the workout. So they didn't even let him get time capped. And there's also no way that he wasn't done his 21 calories for the opener on the bike. So it's just like, it was like, there was a ton of support for Roman and everyone obviously like their heart was breaking for him, right? Because he brings such a good energy and like, he's definitely a crowd favorite with just like his attitude and emotion and stuff like that and everything he's fought through to like get to the games. But at the same time, there was like also this, you could kind of taste and sense this like, oh man, that sucks. And it's just so sad to see that he can't do anything, you know, like it's so sad that he can't, you know, show us his fitness. So it was very sad.
And I do think it's always very inspiring though, like repeatedly over the years through CrossFit in the gym and at the games to be in a community that is so supportive of the athletes, right? The athletes are always doing their best and the crowd loves them for it. I think the cheers that Medeiros got and the cheers that Roman got, like it just makes you feel good to be in that like crew, right? Like you're like, this is a crew, this is a bunch of good people. Like they're cheering for the people that they love, who they can recognize are struggling to whatever capacity it is, and they want to give those people like that good energy and give the effort and the, you know, the like champions mindset, also a big cheer. And I think that that's a really cool thing to be around.
And one of the things that sort of stuck out to me as a thought really was in previous years, you know, other top athletes have also hurt themselves throughout the games where they've had to withdraw or they've either put a boot on or they've carried on in some capacity to overcome that struggle. But it was noticeable this year the lack of minimum workout standards to complete. And that was obviously introduced because of throwing in on the rope climbs, way back in 2014, 13, 14, that era. 10? Well, okay, way back. But it was noticeable for me that there wasn't really any minimum workout standards this year because we also had BKG who also didn't really snatch, didn't really clean because of back issues, and I think there was a few other ones. How did people feel about that lack of minimum?
I think so this question in this conversation comes with like the semifinal bit of Alexander Crone and Alex Vino. Was it Alex Vino? Alexander Crone for sure. And like getting pulled, okay?
Because they were injured and it was unsafe, right? Is that yeah? That's the
let's
angle
give a
that
little
I'm
background
curious
because
about
a lot
too.
of people might not follow that.
In the East, and this only happened in the East. This didn't happen anywhere else, right? So in the East semifinals, there was an athlete that came into the weekend with a pec tear, doing the ruck muscle ups, which by the way is a dumb movement. It's about as smart as doing like weighted pistols. Okay, so there's just no reason. It doesn't make sense, right? It's just not a great pattern in general, and it's super risky. Okay, they're coming from the guy that says no movement is inherently risky, right? Like that's literally like in the bio of like all the things that I say. Like it's just it's like up there, right? Like does it really show fitness? Anyways, people practice it, they get hurt. It's what happens. Same thing as like mass amounts of kipping dips, like for speed. And so, you know, in 2018. And so comes to the weekend, he asks, is there a minimum work requirement to decide if he's going to fly down from Canada to Florida, spend all this money and do semifinals? They tell him you'll find out when you get here. And then they said, no, there's no minimum work requirement. And they said that because lots of people, especially females in the other regions, didn't get any reps. They couldn't. Only one girl in Africa got it. Only like 4 in Asia got it, right? And so they didn't make a minimum work requirement, but you had to show effort. Well, his effort was just doing a bunch of kipping pull-ups, not even attempting to turn over. Well, the next morning, he was called and said that he was medically withdrawn forcibly from the event. And so they came out initially, first thing that came out and said he didn't show enough effort. They quickly changed the narrative to they stopped him from competing because it was a safety issue. Now, if that's the case, I support it. That's fine, but you have to be standard. The odds of Roman injuring his calf, doing single leg weighted double under ropes is as high as this guy doing everything else besides that muscle up, right? So not a good look for CrossFit. CrossFit did not do a good job with that. I don't think they should interfere. If they're not going to set a minimum work requirement, someone should be able to continue on. BKG is a great example. BKG is a crowd favorite, and I think CrossFit does play favorite sometimes for sure. Okay. And so if they would have withdrawn Roman, he wouldn't have got third. And so instead of winning, 70 grand or whatever he won, he would have finished in his position. It would have dropped him down to like 7th or 8th. He would have won 10 grand or 12 grand or whatever that was. So that's why he stayed in for sure. That's why he didn't withdraw. You can ask anyone that's in the Mayhem camp. That's why he did it, because it was a huge money thing and he ended up staying on the podium. I don't think there should be minimum work requirements. They took them away. I think everyone is at that point at the games now where they have it, right? Before it was really in like the team thing and when athletes were still new to this sport, right? Like they were still coming up with things that were like people just can't do.
Yeah, they couldn't do things.
They couldn't do things. And so that I don't think that's the case anymore. But if you're going to take them away, you need to let the athletes make the decision that they're going to train hurt, right? Like they keep comparing it. They want it to be like golf, right? Or like a lot of people want it to be the design of golf. Tiger played hurt like 85% of his career. It's fine, right? If the athlete makes the decision, the athlete is not employed by CrossFit, okay? They sign contracts, etc. NFL players are employed by the NFL, right? They are there, right? And so like they make decisions too. People play hurt in every sport all the time. Let them play. The semifinal thing was a huge mistake. I think it was Boz on a power trip of saying didn't try hard enough.
Right, you're making a mockery of my programming,
right, exactly.
Potentially. And I don't know. I'm not talking shit on Boz, but like that's kind of what it looks like from the outside looking in. Is like, oh, you're making a mockery of this. You're not trying, and if you don't try, you're out. And then you have BKG on the biggest stage doing 95 pounds when he moved pretty well on all the other workouts, right? So, no knock on him. That was BKG's choice. But like, you got to have a consistency. And that's been the story from CrossFit HQ for a very long time. It's like, there's just no consistency. How can this be a professional sport if every single year there's some very odd, inconsistency that totally throws a wrench into, people's competing. And I don't know, they got to do better. There needs to be a standard that they stick with for at least a year, maybe more if we're lucky. And I completely agree with all CJ's points.
So perfect. On that note, so moving over to the women's side with Laura Horvat taking the gold for the first time in a number of years. Now, there's always been question with Laura Horvat. I know we've spoken about it on the previous podcast about her ability to win if there is or isn't any handstand push-ups. She made it clear that there was a high skill handstand workout, and she made it. She got through that absolutely fine. CJ, you said that you think she is a worthy winner. Savannah, Ben, do you concur, or do you think Emma Lawson should have taken it, or any other of the girls could have taken that top spot?
I'm not familiar enough with Emma Lawson's total picture. I don't know her that well. I think it's incredibly impressive how young she is. Mm-hmm. I think just the age of, and this could be a different conversation, but I think that the age of the games athletes seems to be decreasing with those athletes who have been able to start CrossFit so much sooner. Like the entire bracket seems to have shifted.
For
but concept, I think that
She graduated high school this year. That's Emma.
Yeah, she's just a little baby. It's amazing what she can do. I think that Laura has been a contender. I think that Laura has done very well at high level competitions and has been a contender for a while. And I think that I do think she's totally deserving of her podium spot. I think that, she's always right there. She's never, it's not like she drops down and comes back and I think she's always consistent and is just like pretty close frequently. So I think very deserving. Whether there were handstand push-ups or not, even if there were handstand push-ups and she was still on the podium and she did poorly in that, I think still very deserving because the work that she's put in all of the other areas carries her.
Yeah, I think it comes back to this like interesting thing about CrossFit is like, in basketball, the hoop is the same height and the ball is the same size and the court is the same size. In football, regardless of which kind of football, right? The pitch is the same or the field is the same. Like all these standards are the same. What's interesting is that we crown the fittest on earth every year. However, every year it's technically a different test.
Mm-hmm.
So that's tough, right? Because there are, interestingly enough in our sport, because it's so varied, like there are some things that, Horvath in the past has kind of shown that like she has an Achilles heel. And because that Achilles heel wasn't necessarily exposed during the CrossFit Games, I don't know, the race was maybe close enough where if there was a deficit strict handstand push-up, boom, she gets maybe bottom of the pack. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she proves us wrong. She didn't get a chance to though. So it's a tough thing. Does she deserve her gold? Absolutely. Because she won the CrossFit Games that, she was the one that made it happen. And she passed all the tests that our governing body put forth and she came out victorious. I just think it's a tough thing about the sport to claim fittest on earth, but then always vary the tests so much. Because you are potentially running the risk of not exposing a couple of these Achilles heels from some of the athletes. So I don't know. Does she deserve it? Absolutely. Would she have gotten gold if there were deficit strict handstand push-ups? Maybe not. I don't know.
Depends on what the other tests were.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the medley, right, she did get like last. So she did terrible. Right? She's like 37th or something. She did terrible. So
Inverted medley.
Yeah, she was like bottom 5. And so if you equate that as that or whatever the test is, she still won by like 70 points. And so it was really close. And then I think some other people and some other podcasts.
I think there's a lot of fixation on her handstand push-ups. Like, just let it go. Other athletes are bad at things, right? Running, or they're not that strong.
Yeah. 4 times
you're like, nah, just like don't beat a dead horse. Like, she's very fit.
For sure. I agree. Ben. Froning won 4 times in a row, and he still sucked at running, literally through his individual career. Like, he didn't get good at running until like he was a team, not even his first 2 years of team. Like, it was like deep into the team world. So, but no one talks about that.
Yeah. And I think the reason people, I'm not digging at her, right? It's an interesting question. What's interesting, I think, because our past champions didn't seem to have any weaknesses. And I think that's where people are like, well, Tia didn't have a weakness, right? Like, maybe CJ knows a couple, but like Frazier didn't have a weakness. He might've had a running weakness, and then boom, the next year he gets second in the sprint, event. So it's like, I think that's why like the question comes up is like, oh, well, she has this weakness and we didn't test it. And these other champions are like, they didn't have any weaknesses. But it's just, it's just our sport. Like, you got to show up and you have to pass the tests that are given to you. Like, there were years as an athlete where when I looked at the regionals workouts and I tested them, it's like, oh snap, I would have done pretty well at these. And then other years where it's like, wow, these are terrible. box jumps and deadlifts, ouch, last place. Like, so it's interesting. Like, you just have to do the tests that come forth. And that's why we kind of prepare for everything. And she was the most prepared this year, and she won. So she's a champion.
So I concur with like everything, but then let's dig into Justin Medeiros. He has been the golden boy, the one that really everybody's been rooting for to win, and he obviously still did fantastic. We've got to put this into context. These are the top of the top in the whole world. He's still at an incredible level. He was the favourite. Well, one of the favourites to get gold this year and didn't. So what were the things that you guys felt that sort of contributed to that, of him not coming first?
I mean, CJ obviously has an opinion. I don't have an opinion on what led him to not come first, but I do want to say this. Him, not even podium, being on the podium, I think just like brings more attention to how incredible what Matt Frazier and Tia Toomey did was. Because like once they got to the top, they never slipped in any way, shape, or form, right? They're like, yeah, not even, like, it wasn't even close, really.
Yep.
So Medeiros is unbelievable. And he won twice, which was incredible in its own right. But like, just to see him drop like this, is he less fit? Probably not. It just like shows how incredible the talent pool is and how hard it is to win more than one, let alone what, Tia and Matt did, which is just unbelievable. So that's all I have to say. Like, I love Medeiros. I was rooting for him. And I think he really, his attitude out there was outstanding. And he's such a crowd favorite, but it's just like, yeah, it's really hard to keep that crown in the sport.
Definitely. I think there's a couple factors that come into play. If you watched him and Ellie's recap, it seemed like he was extremely hurt most of the summer, after semifinals, or really after quarterfinals. He didn't disclose what it was, but it seemed like it was super limiting, to the point that he wasn't hurt when he got to the games, but that he had missed a copious amount of training. And I'm going to assume it was probably like low back hinging volume. That's usually what it is, because his overhead is just like unmatchable, right? Like, he's got the best overhead in the game, at least positioning wise. And so that would be my guess. Maybe like a knee thing. I don't know. He didn't run really well at all either. So it could have been a knee thing, like really bad tendonitis from them. I'm just hypothesizing. That's one thing, right? And you saw that. And if you listen to that video again, the crash crushed him, right? He probably would have been higher middle of the pack. He was riding really well. He crashed twice and ended up in the mid-low 20s. And then that bike hit a lot of people way harder than they were anticipating. And he didn't eat. He didn't do anything. And I'm not making an excuse for him, but the pig workout should have been a strength. He has great gymnastics volume. He manages the pig really well. He manages grunt work super well too. Very surprising for him to do poorly. So whatever the series of events from the bike leading into that set him off, and he was in like 27th place. Almost an insurmountable amount of distance to cover to get back to where he needed to get to. Got a second in the medley, right? Did great there. Was it his coach that said it on a thing, or we were fortunate enough that we were camping next to him, or his dad? He couldn't do a handstand push-up in the warm-up at all. I couldn't do one, and just went out there and showed face, right, and kind of like started his comeback. So even if you take those two spots, right, say he gets 10th and 10th, he's like 6th or 7th or something already. Instantly, it's a whole different world just from that start of the first two. So whatever his lead up was in his prep, it was clear he had an injury leading in, and then which prevented him from doing a lot of training. Based on the bike, the cramping, the fatigue from it, maybe it was like a knee thing where he couldn't be outside under the heat doing a lot of running or like real aerobic work, would be my guess. And then it kind of leads into that, and it just sucks. You hate to see someone there, but I want to take this point to like all like 6 people that listen to this. If you're an athlete, and you feel like you struggle with pain and injury, everyone struggles with pain and injury all year, all the time, the highest level. All of them do. Everyone. They might not say it. They might not show it. Tia won the games last year, and she was like, I almost pulled out. Right? And Matt has come out more than once to say that, like, post games, I had some sort of like knee ligament tear, right? So do this all the time. This is what we do. This is our job. And everyone is upset because they have something going on. It is part of the game. Everyone deals with it. The winners are the ones who deal with it the least. Just happens to be it. But anyways, that's my thoughts on Justin. It was clear there was like something happening leading up to it because he just looked flat the whole time. He didn't have any pop.
And then remember in that interview, we were sitting next to each other, and it was early on. It was like really early, and you were like, he sounds like he's giving up. Like he sounds like it's I think specifically you said like a white flag.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like he knew all of that, and like he knew like how he felt, and so that like that you just said, seemed deflated or seemed flat, like obviously maybe even before he got there, like because of the events leading up or because of his circumstances.
I'm just even hearing about it again, just my heart goes out to it. Just from an athlete point of view, it's just heartbreaking because all you want to do is just do the best you can, and obviously these challenges and obstacles is a part of the game. That you're just part of being an athlete. We were all there. How was everybody's experience of the CrossFit Games as a spectator?
Love it. My favorite.
It's always the best.
Like
I will say this year with having the RV right outside the venue, thanks to CJ, that was a highlight for sure. We could just go chill there in the shade, hang out with the crew. It was outstanding. So that was great.
I will say, just like for people listening, when you stand out on that field, because you obviously watch it online, you think, oh, okay, it looks hard, but you don't realize just how hard. I think that was the first day I actually like burnt my forehead just standing there and watching. Never mind the athletes.
And why were you on the field?
Oh, because we did a WODprep 5K, didn't we? How did everybody
We did.
on?
We participated in the 5K.
4.5K.
Well, the 5,000 yards.
Yeah.
I like the yards. That was funny. Whoever said that was good. 5,000 yards.
Well, no, that's literally what it is. If you run the calculation, it's 5,000 yards. They literally probably walked it out, and they kind of didn't realize that they were using a yard measuring tape, not a meter measuring tape.
No.
Yes, it's 5,000 yards exactly. To the 2 or 3 yards.
That is funny.
Yep.
Right? This is CrossFit.
Whoever did that isn't going to say anything.
Yeah, but
can you imagine? You're like, oh no.
We can talk. We can.
Yeah. So for everyone who doesn't realize, the 5K that everyone ran, including the athletes and including the WODprep team,
we ran it the best.
People, a lot of people obviously tracked it on their Garmin watches, Fitbits, whatever, and the run was only 4.5K.
Why didn't they
5K.
what if they just called it a cross country run, and then they wouldn't get
They started doing that.
Then they would get zero backlash from the beginning, right? Trail run, nobody cares how far it is. They're like, okay, it's a trail run. Well, let's find out when they finish how far it was. And then you're like, okay, 5K, and then it causes a bunch of drama. Everybody's like,
because
the
winners ran sub 16.
I know.
Which is, for anyone not listening, is complete demon speed, right? Like that is fast. Those are 5-minute miles, 5-10 miles, I think is what a sub 16 5K is. So,
and Savannah, they actually started doing that. Like if you notice, like a lot of the online presence, it just was called cross country run.
Yes.
Cross country trail. Like they dropped the 5K pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, leave it as somewhat ambiguous, and then people won't be coming at you.
And it's so interesting, on something like that specific, whatever it is. CrossFit just shouldn't make those mistakes anymore, right?
Yeah,
that's a mistake.
Yeah,
it's just not even a question.
I mean, like a local city can put on a fun run with an accurate 5K. Like
Right.
you and your friends could run an accurate 5K.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
just,
Yeah,
know.
for everyone wondering, 5,000 yards is 4,572 meters, which is basically, it's like everyone's tracker. That's exactly what it said it was.
Yep, you're right.
but you know, when CrossFit are, it's the frustration is because it's so the hypocrisy about it. Because if they're bringing out new standards and new regulations, like what was the grip one? Like your grips have to be a certain length, and then like they measuring it out with these like centimeters, and then they come out with 5,000 yards rather than 5 kilometers. It's just a bit like
Yeah.
what standards are we using here? But eh.
CrossFit as a sport organization is, for some reason, still experiencing pains. I wouldn't even call it growing pains, just pains. And I think a lot of it has to do with look at over the past 5 years,
Yeah.
who has the CEO been and who has the director of the CrossFit Games been, right? We can name a lot of different people, right? So there's just all this, like the fact that there's been so many shakeups in an organization. If you have new people running the show every year or so, it's very difficult to have that tight ship run. So like, hopefully we get a little bit of stability. I'm still optimistic. I hope that with some stability and with consistency and with, like, I'm not blaming necessarily specific people, because if you're juggling 10 projects and then another one gets thrown on your plate and then one gets taken off your, like, it's just very difficult to do all of this stuff with a changing organization. So hopefully with some stability and just people staying in the same seat for a decent amount of time, hopefully we see some positive changes and correct distance measuring.
And speaking of stability, the CrossFit Games is moving location this year. So as it's been in Madison, we started out I think California. It's been in Madison for the past few years, and they have announced that it is going to be in a new location, and we've hypothesized where. I know we've spoke about it, but Ben,
it will be in Dallas. And
the question is where? No one knows that.
Yeah.
The rumor mill is real thick with Dallas, with some, people that would know the answer.
I'm going to say, I'll just go out and say, at the after party when people were drinking, it's going to be in Dallas.
Dallas.
I know that for a fact. It's going to be in Dallas. I won't say who said it, but the people, it's out there. It's going to be in Dallas, and yeah, so I'd be willing to bet money on it. I mean, it hasn't been officially announced, but yeah, that's where it's going to be.
So I think me and Orlando, one of our coaches, were looking. SMU's campus is a very good, would be a very good host for an event like the CrossFit Games. They have a big basketball stadium. They have practice football fields. They have a real football field on site. That's not an overly large. It's like 20,000 seats. And so I think it would be a good, and it's in Dallas, right? So that's the other thing, right? You say in Dallas, it could be in McKinney at like a high school. That is, high schools in Dallas have 40,000 seat college football or football stadiums, and facilities that rival D1 schools. And so, I think it might be where it is. I hope it's not really far away. I hope it's in Dallas so we can actually say it's in Dallas. But it'll be better across the board as far as, the biggest complaints is travel. It's very hard.
Yeah, flights fly direct to Dallas, and I'm so excited about that.
Closer for me, the RV drive is only 9 hours, 10 hours to Dallas. And so, perfect. Hopefully there's camping on site.
So all I know, it's a big city and that we can fly direct. That's kind of all I wanted to hear first. You mentioned that there's a big university there. Do you think, if we're pretty confident it's going to be there, do you think they are doing it to expand so they can get more spectators, or just to have able to include different events? So, for example, the swimming wasn't in this year because we think the pool was a bit too expensive, and also the lake it's got too much E. coli, so everybody was just getting sick. So is there a big water area in Dallas? I don't know. What's it like?
The statement everything is bigger in Texas does, it's super corny, but it rings true. Whatever you want to find in Dallas will be there, and you could probably find it in like a 2 square mile area. SMU, if it's on a college campus, every college campus there is a full campus, D1, big, and sustain the 50,000 people that come to the CrossFit Games. The only thing, and there's bodies of water, right? There's lakes. I mean, it's the South, so it's going to be hot. I think moving it, if it goes to somewhere like that, I think this is the next topic we were going to bring up, the conversation of the games being split into 2 entities of like individuals and teams, being the CrossFit Games and Masters teams or age groups, and adaptive being at a different time comes into play and into the conversation, which makes me want to throw up in my mouth and swallow it. It's
so dumb.
It'd be very sad if that's the case. But as we were looking at the SMU campus and just kind of getting that idea, it wouldn't really lead to lots of fields of play, right? If you catch my drift, right? So you'd have like the football field, which would have a lot of events, and then the basketball stadium, but it just wouldn't seem like one. I don't know. It would be weird to see like a Festivus, like the festival that we see as the CrossFit Games, and so. I hope it doesn't come into fruition, but it does seem like it's the conversation, especially if the goal is to push the sport into the limelight on ESPN. This is the way to do it, right? So from the virtual digital explorer, like viewer, splitting them up is the way to go, and it allows people to televise and cover a much better situation. But I think pulling the Masters out of the games could be not a good thing. It would be very sad. So I hope that's not the case. But
I think it'd be obviously it's very sad for the athletes, very frustrating. There was already a lot of coverage concerns, rightly so, right? If you're going to offer coverage for something, don't make it as horrible as it was. They just had like one wide angle lens and you could hardly see anything. The bottom line, everyone, is that CrossFit is a business and it is trying to make money. And the unfortunate reality is that they don't make money off of the Masters divisions. They don't make money off the adaptive divisions. And as sad as it is, like we want everyone to have their limelight. We want everyone to be promoted. We want inclusivity. That costs too much money. And if CrossFit as an organization is going to keep running these big events and keep, hiring better people, like CrossFit has to make money. And the bottom line is the writing is on the wall. Like all of the adaptive and Masters and teens, they lose lots of money on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line.
I just think it's so short-sighted because the CrossFit Games and the documentaries does bring out a wider audience of people to introduce them to CrossFit as a sport and what it is. And then I know, having spoken to Masters age athletes who
she's probably still talking, so just let her finish.
There we go.
Yes. So when we're talking to Masters athletes, they want to go and watch other Masters athletes elite compete and perform at that top level because it is inspiring to watch, just to really show what the body can do. Post sort of 20s and 30s, and arguably the trickle down effect is more. The people who do, because CrossFit's an expensive sport, so the people who do have money generally are the people who are 30 and above. It's shown to them that, yes, you can do CrossFit. Yes, you can perform at a high level. You can have this as part of your life, and you're going to have a you're going to have people in the sport for a longer period of time, building that community across the world. And if you start taking that visibility away at that top level, the longer term effects of it is you're gonna. I think they're gonna lose on the longer run. Yes, immediately they lose. They don't make any money from them really, any visibility. But from a community standpoint, which is the core business model and core aspect, I think they're gonna lose a lot.
Then why weren't the stands packed for the adaptive, masters, and teens divisions?
So
Why weren't the stands packed?
But that's just at the CrossFit Games. That we're not talking the audience of the TV and online.
Because those things are a direct representation of like that. We can extrapolate the data of who shows up to watch what, and then that's going to show us what people care about in the general public and in the rest of the CrossFit community, right? Like, I mean, if the CrossFit community was like, oh my gosh, the 55 to 59 men's division, like I am so inspired by them, then the data would show that, because right now, like it was one thing when the events were happening at the same time, but like they separated them, right? So like the masters events were running when only masters events were running. The bottom line is there weren't hordes and thousands of people there watching. So like, believe me, we love the masters. There's a reason I streamed them a few years ago. Like most of our athletes are like, they deserve it. They put in the work, but the bottom line is from a dollars and cents perspective, it just doesn't make sense. Like another organization should either come in and take charge of it, or like it's just a sad reality of like being super inclusive with all these divisions and stuff. It muddies the focus, and really the only thing that CrossFit makes money off of is the elite division, right? It's like the NFL doesn't have like a Masters NFL, right? The NBA doesn't have like, oh, here's this league for people who are like this, right? They just don't have it because it wouldn't make any money. And it's just like the sad reality of high level sports is people only really like the money comes out when people see the top in the world, right? And it's just like it's just a sad reality. I'm not crapping on the masters divisions or the adaptive divisions or the teens divisions. I love them. I love watching them. But the fact of the matter is the entire world doesn't necessarily bring out the money for them.
It's
Yeah. We just want them to. I think it also comes from a place you just want CrossFit to be doing something different. You know, that's its thing from the start. It's like, hey, we're going to do things differently, and then like you said, over time, they've just, I don't know, going into the sort of status quo.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say about CrossFit, like, you know, and I might sound like I'm defending CrossFit. It's a very tough decision, but you know, if you're running a company, you're trying to make money. But one thing that I will say like is pretty cool about CrossFit is like, this is one of the few sports where the men and women make the same amount of money at the top level, right? In terms of the champion, like if you look at all other professional sports, it's pretty much like, you know, the men are making all the money, and then the women's divisions aren't nearly making as much. I think it's awesome. The payouts are the same. I bet the top females are making just as much money, if not more than the top males. So like, I do think that is a super unique, exciting thing about CrossFit.
I've had friends make posts, non-CrossFit friends, who are in like cycling communities, post CrossFit posts about the equal payouts and how they wish that their sport would use CrossFit as an example. And I was like, well, this is really nice. Like, this is a really nice thing. So, you know, some things are being done well. I think as far as splitting the teens and the masters and the adaptive athletes, I think I 100% understand everything that you're saying, Ben, and I agree. Like, it's all facts. It just, for me, like in my heart, it seems like it takes away some of their accomplishment. Like,
oh, for sure.
That is the thing. That is the thing that to me, I'm like, that sucks. Like that,
yeah.
that is what sucks, because it kind of like shadows it or dilutes it, or it's like diminished because it's not the same, you know, like experience.
Yep. I agree. And it's another interesting thing to bring. Like, I wonder if the teams make any money, right? Like, I wonder if those divisions make as much, it's just like, who knows if they do split things. I don't know. It's just the same thing with the teams stuff. It's like hardly anybody's watching them in comparison to the main event. So it's just gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, if it does split, that is super heartbreaking. But I guess from an optimist perspective, maybe if it does split, they can actually properly feature and not televised, but like they're going to be able to maybe stream the event as it properly should be streamed and actually feature the athletes and let the community who wants to support them actually see them compete from a distance rather than, this kind of sideshow that it is right now.
Yep. Well, let's just pray that we got another year of everyone in the same spot.
I agree. I want that to happen.
Okay, well, wrapping it up. Anything else that you want to sort of say, contribute towards, just reflecting on this year's CrossFit Games?
I do. So, I just want to, we talk about the negative or what's not good, but I just want to make it clear. And I know everyone in this chat is the same way. Like, I am the biggest CrossFit optimist, and I think Don Fall being in the place that he's in is going to create the stability that we're looking for. I think Eric Rosa did the job that needed to be done in the time that he was there, right, where CrossFit was and the struggles that it was having. But I think Don is the direction for sure. I think he's structured, he's rigored, he's making hard decisions. And, we talked about the coverage of the Masters. While it was a hard decision, I don't think anyone realized this. It sucked. It was terrible. Everyone was upset. But it was the first and only time that a decision that was against the masses was addressed directly with an answer and a reason. Ever. Dave has never done that. Greg's never talked to anyone. Eric didn't do that, right? Like, it was like, hey, I know this happened, and this is why. No one has done that. They've never done that on the athlete side from movement standards or select.
What did he say? I didn't know that happened.
He was like, it's flat out. We have all of these experiences that we want to create here. I think he's referring to like a lot of the affiliate. There was a lot more money that went into like the affiliate owner experience at the games. Other things they wanted to do from, I think, an event perspective and the coverage that they gave in the athlete. I'm pretty sure going into ESPN, I think that took a lot of bandwidth, time, and money from their side to create something visually that was appropriate on TV. And so he was like, our resources were just thin, and this was what we had to make. It was either a nothing or that. And so if you ever see the behind the scenes of the CrossFit Games and the amount of TV trucks that come from CBS or ESPN in the past, it's wild. And each one of those trucks costs a few $1 million to manage, like $1 million to manage for that whole week, right? It's crazy. So it was he at least addressed it, which I think.
Yeah, I love that he actually addressed it.
First time. If we take anything away, even though that sucked and it might show a direction, it was addressed, which is a completely new direction of a sport that is now 17 years old. And so I'm excited for that. I think Dave.
Ownership, right? It shows ownership of your decisions, and people respect that. And they're like, okay.
Yeah, I respect it. People are still mad, but I think it's a good direction for at least some transparency from the unknown and, knowable, whatever, right? Sport.
I love that, because that just gives us hope and optimism for the future. Even, like you said, we don't necessarily like or agree with some of the decisions. Sometimes when we get to that destination and we see how it plays out, we go, okay, we see what this vision is actually. We see how this has made things better, even if it has had some change to get there.
Yeah, we just support. We just, we have high expectations because we love it. We want it to be successful, and everybody is invested and passionate.
Yep.
Well, on that note, that's it. That's another episode of the warm up. Obviously, our post games edition. Thanks, guys. Thanks everybody for your time, and we'll see you.
This is the Coach CJ De Palma birthday edition of
Okay.
the warm
Happy birthday, CJ.
Happy birthday.
day.
You're gonna sing to me on camera.
No.
Happy birthday to you. Happy
Happy
birthday to you.
Happy
Happy birthday, dear CJ. All of our timing is off. Happy birthday to you.
Wow. You never realize how there is like actually a lag in this. I can do that.
That's going to sound fantastic.
Oh,
You're welcome.
good.
Ready?
We apologize for everybody's ears for that.
Everyone have a good day.
Yeah, I hit the notes. I know I did.
Great. Enjoy. Have a good August.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.